So today we are going to talk about order of operations and evaluating expressions. We are just going to do the first part of the lesson today. We are just going to talk about order of operations. So in your notes, I want you to get out a piece of notebook paper, and I want you to title your notes Order of Operations and Evaluating Expressions. However, we are just going to do the first part of that. So we are only really going to get through order of operations today. Tomorrow we will talk about evaluating expressions. So you have gotten out a piece of notebook paper and you have titled your notes Order of Operations and Evaluating Expressions. If you need to pause the video to do that, go ahead. So when we talk about order of operations, we're referring to PEMDAS, which is how many of you learned that. And the first thing that we talk about in PEMDAS is the P, which stands for a parentheses, which leads us to our first term. What are grouping symbols? So grouping symbols tell us what happens first. Kind of tells us what operation needs to be completed first. Okay, that's why we use grouping symbols. There are several types of grouping symbols. The most common are parentheses. There are also brackets. And then sometimes you'll see these squiggly things called braces. Okay, so examples of grouping symbols are parentheses, brackets, and braces. What is an exponent? What are exponents? Exponents are numbers written off to the top right. So an exponent would be a number written to the top right of a number or variable or expression. So it could be written to the top right of a number, a variable, or an expression. Right now, we're just going to worry about seeing exponents written to the top right of a number. So for today's lesson, we're just going to focus on them being written to the top right of a number. So for example, so we have 4 examples, numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. I would like you to write these down. So example number 1 is 3 to the 5th power. Well, what does that mean? That essentially means 3 multiplied by itself 5 times. Times 3, times 3, times 3, times 3. It does not mean 3 times 5. It does not mean 3 times 5. So 3 to the 5th power is, well, 3 times 3 is 9. Times 3 more is 27. Times 3 more is 81. Times 3 more is 243. So 3 to the 5th power is 243. Again, it does not mean to multiply 3 times 5. It means to take 3 times itself 5 times. So an exponent is really repeated multiplication. Let's look at our second example. Example number 2 is -4 to the 3rd power. That means -4 times -4 times -4. Well, if you remember from multiplying integers, we learned that if we can count the number of negatives, 1, 2, 3, there are 3 negatives. 3 is an odd number. So if I have an odd number of negatives, I know that my final answer is going to be negative. So I can ignore the signs in front and I can just multiply as normal. 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 more is 64. So I know that my final answer is going to be a -64. All right, what about -3 to the 4th power? Same thing. That means -3 times -3 times -3 times -3. This is how I want you to show your work. So let's see, if I count, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 negatives. 4 is an even number, which means that my final answer is going to be positive. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 more is 27, times 3 more is 81. So my final answer is positive 81. Example number 4 is negative. Notice that the -3 is not in a parenthesis, and then it's 3 to the 4th power. So that is really what this looks like. It looks like a negative times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So we know that 3 to the 4th power is 81, and then we have to make our final answer negative. So I really want you to look at how number 3 is written compared to number 4. Notice in number 4, the negative is not included in the operation because that power, that exponent, is not being attributed to the negative sign. In example number 3, the entire number is -3. -3 is in a parenthesis. We're raising that whole thing to the 4th power. In example number 4, we're just raising the 3 to the 4th power and making our answer negative. So why do we use order of operations? It just lets us perform math in the correct order, right? So what are the order of operations? Well, we said parentheses, exponents, and then you have multiply and divide and add and subtract. The unique thing about multiply and divide and add and subtract is multiply and divide is interchangeable, and so is add and subtract. It happens in the order that they appear. So all we're going to finish up with is we are going to talk about these 6 examples. I'm going to do the first 3, you're going to do the second 3. So this is your assignment for today. Your assignment for today is to finish out these examples. So you'll see that I have example 1, and then it says your turn. Example 2, and then it says your turn. example 3, and your turn. So we are just going to do these 3 examples, and then you will do 3 on your own. So for example number 1, I have 8 plus 5 times 3. So I have addition and multiplication. Well, according to order of operations, I have to do multiply before I do add. So I have to take care of this operation first. 5 times 3 is 15. So I really have 8 plus 15, which equals 23. All right, let's look at the next one. Our next example, example number 2, is 16 minus 2 to the 3rd power plus 8. Order of operations says I have to do exponents before I do subtraction or addition. The exponent is just attached to the 2. It's not grouped. That 2 is not grouped with the negative in a parenthesis. So it's really 16 minus 2 times 2 times 2 plus 8. Rewriting that becomes 16 minus 2 times 2 times 2 is 8 plus 8. And if you remember from our integer assignments, I have a negative 8 and a positive 8. They cancel each other out because they are inverses of each other. So my final answer is 16. Number 3, I have a parenthesis. Order of operations says I have to take care of parentheses before I take care of anything else. 3 minus 7 is negative 4. So I have 15 plus 2 times negative 4. Because the 2 is smashed right up against that parenthesis, that operation is multiply. I have to do the multiply before I can do the add. So now I have 15 plus 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Think back to your integer operations. I have a positive 15 and a negative 8. Are the signs the same or are they different? The signs are different. Different signs subtract. 15 take away 8 is 7. Keep the sign of the bigger number. So your assignment for today is to complete these 3 problems. So again, your assignment for today is to do these 3 problems on your own. Good luck.